All right, everybody. So we're here with Kathy Hernandez. Kathy Hernandez of the Southern Union. Um, you know, not just a lot of people look at Roger Hernandez, her husband, as kind of like an evangelism guru. But let me tell you that it is the joint effort of Roger and Kathy. And I would probably say Kathy and Roger because she does a lot of the work, the pre-work, and then he comes in and then she cleans up afterwards. So I would say it's a joint effort that makes them the best in the business, in our father's business. So I'm just grateful for the work that they do in evangelism. They've been an inspiration to me in particular. We talk a lot about in the cohort, we talk a lot about um, the iceberg analogy. And what you see above the surface is just the tip of the iceberg. A lot of the work goes on beneath the surface, behind the scenes, and that's Kathy's expertise. She's just the best. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Pastor Edward. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, for sure. So we're talking today with pastors in Oklahoma City. Well,
Yeah.
not just Oklahoma City, throughout the state of Oklahoma. Some of them are meeting in the Oklahoma conference, the ones who are closest to OKC, and the others are meeting us in the Tulsa area. And we have been going through a lot of things, but right now we're bringing it home to the actual in-person experience that
Yes.
that guests would have when they visit us. And we don't want it just to be rich for guests. We want it to be rich for our members. So I want to just hit you with a lot of questions. And one of the reasons why we invited you in particular is because you have a unique view. You get week in, week out, you go to different churches of different sizes, and particularly doing evangelism on weeks when guests are coming for the first time. How often do you guys how often you guys at a different church?
Yes. So my husband is the Ministerial and Evangelism Director, and I'm the coordinator for that same department. The thing that we focus on, besides the ministerial aspect, the thing that we focus on the most is the evangelism piece. And so we do 1 to 2 series in each one of our conferences, and there's 8 of them within our union. So we do anywhere from 10 to 12 series every year, and they're usually a 1 week long. Sometimes we do half-week longs for our Spanish churches, but that's how often we do it. And we do about 1 or 2 outside of our area, just to
Right.
make sure that we're kind of staying on our toes, and
Absolutely.
what is how things done in other locations, and what can we bring to our kind of home territory. I like to learn and grow, and always be looking for what's working.
Yeah. So you guys have you do this in all sorts of settings. You've done it in big churches, small churches, medium-sized churches, English, Spanish, and I'm sure other cultures as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
you have a perspective that a lot of us don't have because a lot of us have pastored in limited districts, in limited settings, in limited towns or states. And you guys have been kind of, I mean, literally have been around the world doing this, but around the US and in different types of environments. This is why we want to pick at your brain just a little bit
Sure,
and
sure.
answering some key questions that have to do with making first, making good first and lasting impressions.
Impressions, correct.
Yeah, when we've
Yeah.
done the hard work of building relationships to get
Hmm.
people over to a church to hear the gospel for the first time. So I'm going to kind of launch with some questions here, and and we'll just take a couple of minutes on each one for you to just kind of give us your feedback. I want to start with this one. When you walk
Sure.
into a church for the first time, when somebody walks into a church for the first time, what are the first things uh, that you instinctively evaluate?
Yeah. I try to do a site visit at each one of the locations where I'm about to have the meetings,
Hmm.
just to get a feel for the church, its culture, what it looks like, the regular flow. I try not to introduce myself when I first come in. Some people do recognize me, but I try to just come in as a guest and get a feel immediately for what it's like to be there as a first time person. I look for ease of finding the entrance. When I get on your property, is it, first of all, is Google Maps easy to find the entrance? Is it taking me to where it needs to be? Once I figured that out, then where's the actual entrance to the building? Is there any kind of signage for that? Is there anyone guiding us for that? If I get there late, where do I find parking if it's full? So these kinds of things for me, like the first initial driving up to the location, finding the entrance, getting to the front door. And then the next thing is there someone there to greet me? I usually arrive early, but I have arrived late sometimes. And you'd be surprised how many churches after like maybe 11:10 or 11:15, the greeters say, my job is done. And they go in because they want to, enjoy the service. I understand, the members want to be fed as well. But then the lobby is completely left
Hmm.
unattended.
Yeah.
And I'm the first time guest. I don't know, where do I go? Where's the entrance to the sanctuary? I need to use a restroom. Where do so those are the first things for me that are like important. How do I get to your building initially? And then is there someone there to greet me to kind of give me guidance?
Awesome. Awesome. That's really good feedback. And I've realized that this varies dramatically from church to church. Because now as I go
Absolutely.
to different churches, I'm taking note of this and I'm realizing, oh, in some places, depending on what time you arrive, you may or may not even be greeted.
Correct.
And and even when you're greeted, sometimes you don't have people communicating certain things clearly to you, like where you're supposed to go after you've gone in through the
Correct.
front
Correct.
door
Yep.
or
Yep.
the restroom. And some places it's hard to find the front door, just to be honest.
It is. It
I've
really
been
is.
to some churches here locally for two or three times, and I'm still not sure which door to go in because if you don't arrive,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've had churches where it says do not enter here and everyone's entering and I'm like that's confusing.
yeah,
And you've got
okay,
churches where you it looks very obvious that it's the front door and you go up and it's locked and it's like okay.
yeah.
So, yes.
This is
Simple things like that. That's of my first impressions. Can I get inside your building? Can I find your property, get inside your building? Uh you got a friend of
yeah.
mine, huh?
Yeah,
And then
that's you can't. Luckily, he's blurred out, so you don't have to see his face. But it's this guy, Richard Pinedo.
Richard, it's so good to see
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Okay, so
so
yeah,
okay, so the next
it
question,
seems obvious, but believe it or
yeah,
not, it's not.
it's
It
not, and
really isn't obvious.
it's probably the I mean, it's the first thing we should probably think of because it's the first impression somebody gets. And they say that
Yep,
the decision oftentimes as to whether to return to church are made in those first moments, right?
correct. Yeah,
So,
5 seconds, really,
but
or 5 minutes to make your first impression.
correct. But I do think that it's the things that that as church members, we tend to think about the least because it's so natural to us. We
Correct.
already know what door to go in. We already
Yes.
know that, some climb in through the basement, cut through the kitchen, go down the dark hallway, wind up in the sanctuary. And it's like, duh,
Right.
everybody knows that, but most people don't. So, okay.
Absolutely.
What separates churches that successfully become guest friendly from those that remain inward focused?
So it's the churches that sit down and have the conversations that we are having here.
Hmm.
It's the churches that make it very intentional what the first impressions will be for their guests from a beginning to end. So it's like first impressions to true connection is how like is how I word it. From first impressions to true connection. There's a full process to that.
Hmm.
Oftentimes we think it's just you're friendly at the door, you welcome them in, and then that's it, right?
Hmm.
But it's a whole culture, and it's the job of like all the church, not just the greeters, or not just the person speaking, or not just the Sabbath school teachers. It's the culture of the whole church. So what separates churches who are inward focused to outward focused people is to sit down and to have a conversation of what this looks like. Pastor Edward, you mentioned that you talk a lot about taking off your glasses and putting on the glasses of the other people, right?
Hmm.
And so that means that you put on the glasses of a guest.
Hmm.
Try to imagine what it's like. Take you and a couple of leaders with you when you're coming to the church. Like we just talked about the entrance, right? Can we find it? Is there someone greeting me? Once you get in, what's next, right? And it needs to be taught. These are processes that need to be written down so that when one team is not serving, the next team knows what to do. right? So that you don't have the one member church leader saying, I've got to do it every Sabbath because I'm the only one who knows how to do this. But these are processes, these are steps, this is a culture, this is a conversation that has been clearly had from the top down, so that everyone knows this is how we operate. Churches who do this tend to go from inward focus to outward focus because everything they do becomes like, if I have a kid who comes for the first time to my Sabbath school class, the Sabbath school teacher has already been a part of this conversation. That's a part of the whole church, structure and culture that says, this is what we're going to do in our Sabbath school as part of the welcoming, process of our church. This is what our greeters do. This is what the deacons do. This is what the ushers do. And so I know we've got individual job descriptions, but when it comes to like the process for the guest, there should be a holistic view of this.
Absolutely.
A streamlined version of what this looks like. And I think that the churches who are successful take the time to do that.
Amen. Amen. Awesome. The next question is going to be from the parking lot to the pew. Where do guests most often feel confused or uncomfortable?
I believe it's right after you welcome them. Because oftentimes we just welcome them and then people kind of go like about their way. But what does that mean to go about your way? If they arrive at 10 o'clock, what is currently going on in your church at 10 o'clock? Right? So the people who are greeting or the teams who are there, they need to know to kind of guide the church members. It's 10 o'clock. Our Sabbath school class is going on. You notice that they've got children of a certain age. You kind of mention, hey, if you're interested, we've got Sabbath school classes for your children, or and they're welcome to join us, and they're down this way. I call it the Walmart versus the Publix experience. I don't know, Pastor Edward, if you've got Publix stores there in Oklahoma.
No, I haven't seen them, and I was too broke to go to them in Georgia.
So here in the Southeast, and Pastor Edward knows because he had some in there in Georgia.
We do have Target, which is
we have a grocery. Yes, we have a grocery store called Publix. Publix is known for a very hands-on, one-on-one, personal customer service experience. So you go to Walmart and you can't find what you need. It's a huge store, right? Can't find what you need. And they always tell you it's down, aisle 7, that direction. You get down there and aisle 7 isn't easy to find. And then you get lost and you have to find somebody else to get another answer, right? That's the Walmart way. The Publix way is they'll take you. Oh, you can't find mayonnaise? Follow me. They drop whatever they're doing. They literally drop whatever they're doing and they take you there. Right? It's a very personal, one-on-one, hands-on thing. And then they say, is there anything else I can do before I leave? After they showed you the mayonnaise, is there anything else? So if you don't know where something else is, they'll show you that too. So that's the difference between a Walmart experience and a public experience. And that's what helps people at that point in time. Because that to me is the most confusing part. If you get to church late, right, you need to go into the service. But people sometimes want to use the restroom, etc., whatever that may be. But if you'd like to use the restrooms, they're right here. And by the way, we'd love for you to stay because we've got a potluck. They may have missed the announcement about the potluck during announcement time, right? But you at the entrance have just covered that. And so I think that things like that really make a difference. That's the most confusing part to me. I don't know. Maybe there's, you might have a different experience, Pastor Edward.
I think that's it. That's solid. And and I feel the same. And I think that's one of the things that does frustrate me. Literally, I'm joking about being too broke to shop at one versus the other. I literally choose where I go based on
customer service,
how easy, how accessible, and how the customer service is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a great point. And this is kind of a connected question, but what are subtle environmental signals that make a guest feel either welcomed or out of place?
Okay. So I remember, I remember something that my husband used to do that was really, really good. He would get to church early on Sabbath morning,
Mm-hmm.
and he would be one of the first people to greet the new people coming in, members, guests, whoever they were, along with the greeter team.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really nice because it's like direct access to the person who's about to have like a spiritual conversation, who's about to present Jesus to you.
Absolutely.
Right. And what a better first impression than for them to be friendly with you, greet you at the very entrance. I
Mm-hmm.
have seen pastors maybe not do it at the very beginning, but they say, by the way, if you'd like, to have a conversation with me about the message that you just heard, you want to follow up on that topic, you can meet me here in the first 2 rows.
Mm-hmm.
There are some churches, in fact, in the Oklahoma area, there is a church that has dedicated a whole room, like a
Yeah.
reception room.
The next room, next step.
Yes, the
Uh-huh.
next room, exactly.
As a matter of fact,
And
one of the
I
one
thought
of
it was an amazing
yeah.
example. So I'm using Oklahoma here as an
We're
example.
actually meeting our Tulsa meeting right now is taking place in the church with one of those rooms.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. It's a room that is friendly, that people can just kind of sit and talk in a comfortable environment. I think they had like I think waters or maybe like tea or coffee available so that it's like a comfortable environment. It's welcoming, it's warm, it's comfortable, it's non-threatening. And so that's a great opportunity there for them to connect as well. That's one thing. So we start, we've already talked about easily finding it, a good place to park. I I was at a church that they had trained their members to not take the first parkings. It wasn't even
Uh-huh.
like it said
Yeah.
guest parking,
Correct.
right? There was nothing that said that the first parking spaces were for guests. They, as a church, had the culture, we're going to park in the back.
Correct.
Naturally, they already set the tone. We're making space for the guests, right? And
Mhm.
so find the parking there right away. The other thing that I wrote down that I personally like is a clean, organized, good smelling place.
Mhm.
I was just at a location that I had been at several times this weekend. And when I walked in this time, I was like, oh, it's actually my home church. That's what I remember now. My
Mhm.
home church. I remember walking into my home church and all of a sudden noticing that they put that really good smelling scent that you see in the hotels.
Yes,
And I was
yes.
like,
The diffuser.
wow, exactly. And this
Exactly.
is why it's important because my home church is the Well, which is at Patmos Chapel.
Mhm.
My church facility is a huge wellness center. And the first thing that you see when you're walking in are are basketball courts and tennis courts and so forth. And so for your first impression was a bit of a locker room feel. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And this last time that I went to my home church, I travel a lot. So it sounds like I never go there,
Yeah.
but we are always doing evangelism. So,
Correct.
I just want to clarify.
You get a
So
pass. We get it.
this last time that I went to my home church, I walked in and I was like, it doesn't smell like a gym. It smells like a very welcoming, like when you go into like a hotel or a spa. It was like immediately something small made such a big switch in my mind. It's no longer a gym locker room feel. It's a church,
Yeah.
a welcoming experience. I was like, wow. So make it look good, smell good, that kind of stuff, right? Clean.
Yeah.
Um, you know, where do I sit? Leave. I know that the members like to sit in the back, but sometimes we got to leave those spaces in the back for the
Please.
guests who come in a little
Please.
late.
Yes.
They're already a guest. Then you're
Correct.
asking them to sit way in the front. How uncomfortable is that, right? They're
Correct.
embarrassed. Not a fun situation. You've got to reserve the seats in the back for maybe parents with children or our guests who are coming a little late, right?
Mhm.
The bathrooms, easy signage where they're at. Um, you know, uh, you know, how to find the fellowship hall. When you say go to the fellowship hall for lunch, when people come out, where is that? And if you don't have signs, sometimes people are better than signs.
Correct.
People are, it's because it's like a personal sign,
Mhm.
right? And so if you can't do the signage just now because you don't have the money or whatever, or it's not up and ready, use people.
Mhm.
Make them feel like family right away. So think of it like this. You've got someone coming to your house to visit you. Okay. You've got someone, a special person that you've invited them over to your house to have lunch, right? When they arrive, you want to make sure that they can find parking, which we already talked about, right?
Mhm.
So your husband doesn't park in the driveway. Your husband parks up the street
Yeah.
to leave the driveway for the guests, right? When they come, you welcome them. When you tell them where to sit down here, come sit in our living room. You don't do the holy huddle, where you're
Yeah.
just we all know each other. We're all chatting with each other. And the guests are out here like,
Yeah.
I don't know anybody. And they're just kind of on their own because no one's engaging them in
Right.
conversation. And this is something that our church doesn't even notice
Of course.
because this is natural. We're just happy to see our friends. We're catching up from Sabbath to Sabbath. But we get into our holy huddles and we forget that we have the guests, even the greeters. You come up to the door and they're chit chatting and they just look, oh, hi. And they barely say hi to you. So things like that, right?
Yep.
So, and then a very clear next steps process.
Hmm.
So is that a connection card that the pastor says, you've got a connection card in front of you in your pew. We'd love for you to fill that out so that we can connect with you. Or, hey, I'd love for you to meet me in the next room. Or I'm going to be at the door. Come speak with me. Or we've got our team of, our prayer team that's ready to pray for you. A next step process.
Hmm.
Have a location where you have flyers or informations or a board that talks about the things that you offer to your community. Is that a weekly food bank? Are you in connection with any organizations that might help them, like with domestic violence or rent assistance or anything like that? Any assistance that you offer or that you are in connection with a community organization that offers that should be visible. That's a good next step process.
Hmm.
So we need to have clear next step processes, which oftentimes doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So these are just some things.
Yeah, just some. And look, Kathy is cooking. So I hope y'all's pens are just are moving and that we're getting notes here because I know that this is like, it might feel like drinking water from a fire hydrant as our cohort does, but this is stuff that is very meaningful. The church where we decided to take our membership out here, we're planting churches and bouncing around every week, so it's rare that we're able to just be there. But it was a place where you not just got the warm greeting, but as you mentioned, like your husband Roger, how for a time he would sit there and join them at the reading. That's that he's incredibly introverted, right?
He is. He's
So
incredibly introverted, but
correct
he knew how important that
how important it
was.
was, and I went to a church and like the greeting was great, it was phenomenal, but then it was like in that little in between space before Sabbath school, it was the warm reception from the pastor as well. And my
Absolutely.
thing, it's not that because I don't need to be catered to. I don't need to be nurtured. The reason why I chose to take my church was my membership to a specific church. First, it was my wife. Where does she feel absolutely fine? She's introverted. Where does she feel
Uh-huh.
good? So when I'm gone, she still feels I can go in there and feel warmth. But
Yes.
even more than that, because we're always in the process of trying to meet friends, meet neighbors in the community and bring them in. Where can they go without me? And still be greeted warmly, still know where how to get to the restroom, still have clearly communicated where
Yes.
lunch is going to be, what's coming up. It doesn't require me having to be there with them in my absence. The church already has it going. But I think all of our churches need to be kind of those locations. I love what you pointed about the parking lot situation. It's like, yeah, give your best parking, that front parking to visitors, but in regards to in the sanctuary, give the best seats, which are the seats in the back, to them.
Yeah.
And I think as pastors, we should strive a little bit more to model this in our
Yes,
settings, right? We shouldn't be trying to be the furthest one to the back, showing up late, not like the things that we want to see modeled in the congregation. We have to model it in our assemblies,
absolutely.
but we need to train our people also. And I do this a lot as I go to different churches. We need to train our people also to like, yeah, the visitor that comes in late, the young family with a bunch of kids that are gonna make noise and they need to be able to rush to the back. The person that we're aiming for coming in that smells like smoke, that smells like a hangover, like you know
Yep,
where they want to be.
exactly.
They want to be off. Like give them that,
Yes,
keep that VIP seating for them.
correct,
And what you
correct,
said about
correct.
the diffusers is awesome too, because I remember back in man many moons ago when I was in high school and a lot of folks were into like Abercrombie and stuff like that. I remember like when you walked by the that was the first place I remember the diffusers because I didn't shop there. I was into a different style, but when you would walk by the mall and you would walk by you would smell that
Yes,
and it was and it was drawing it had something, right?
yes,
It had a scent that was acquainted with it. So not that every church needs to have that, but at the least you can't
correct.
smell like a locker room. At the least.
Exactly,
And at the
exactly. Right,
most,
right,
you can give
right.
them a positive mental association with with it. So
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
awesome. So the next question is what are the biggest turnoffs you've seen that churches don't realize may be hurting them?
I mentioned them already, but I'll
Correct.
kind of
May-
reiterate them. First
And
of
maybe
all,
like
is
aesthetically also, yeah.
exactly. So okay, so let me start with the aesthetic. Now that you mentioned that, so my dad. Okay, I'm Puerto Rican. I came here from Puerto Rico as a little girl.
Mhm.
I was born in New York, went to Puerto Rico, came back to the U.S. as a little girl, and I remember we were kind of poor, kind of starting out. My dad was trying to get work here, the language barrier, all that fun, all that stuff that comes with being, kind of an immigrant. Even though I'm
Yeah,
American, but an immigrant with the language.
correct.
And I remember my dad used to always say this to me. He used to always say, he said, because he bought a house with great sacrifice.
Hmm.
Great sacrifice. It was a simple house. It wasn't the nicest house, but it was the best that he could afford. And I remember him always saying, he said, Kathy, we might be poor, but we
Mm.
don't have to be dirty. We don't
Come
have
on.
to look like we're running down, like we're run down.
Mhm.
And he would always make sure that the lawn was very well kept, that it was swept. And if it would you get dusty or with all the pollen, he would rinse it off. The front of the house always looked really good. Even though the back might not have looked that great, he always made sure the front of the house looked really well. And when people came over, we didn't have the nicest carpet. We had some crazy wallpaper, but the house smelled good. It was always organized and clean. And, we always, people always felt like at home in our house, even though it wasn't the nicest house, the most modern house.
Correct.
So my dad used to always say, we might be poor, we don't have to be dirty, we don't have to be disorganized. There are things that we can do always to leave a good impression,
Mhm.
even though we might not be made of money or we don't have a lot of money right now.
Yeah.
And so as he would fix things up, as he would get a little money here and a little money there, he would fix things up and make them look a little nicer, a little better. But simple things like that, I think, so like a place that looks cluttery, that doesn't smell well, that looks like, people don't care.
Mhm.
That's a big turnoff. Like if they don't care, what, they're, I'm not going to show much interest in a location that looks like people don't care.
Correct.
The holy huddle. So you come in and, I went to a church that was beautiful, a big church. I was traveling from, across the state and we stopped on Sabbath there. And I went in, I got one greet. Someone greeted me once. And after that, no one talked to me.
Mhm.
Church was over and everyone was super friendly amongst themselves. Apparently they had a potluck, but no one invited me. And so we went off and ate, we went out to eat on Sabbath. When not even knowing later on, I was told later on that, hey, that there was a lunch that we could have stayed for, but,
Mhm.
I never knew. So it's not me as the guest who should be asking you.
Mhm. Correct.
It's us as the members who should be informing our guests. Like that's our job. Right. And so That I think is a turnoff. And I think that uh, getting especially if you arrive late and there's no one here to greet you, I think that's a huge turnoff.
Mhm.
These are simple things that can be fixed. But
Absolutely.
that, I mean, personally, to me, those are my greatest turnoffs. And people, when they greet you, looking you up and down, like kind of like you feel like they just did the scan. I approve or don't approve,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
when we're greeting people, just look at them in the in their eyes and just greet them and try. Doesn't matter what they smell like, how they look, how shocked you may be by the piercings or their tattoos or whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Just look at people with the way Jesus would look them in their eyes.
Amen.
So that's a big turnoff if people feel like you're being judged. Like, why would they come back?
Absolutely. And man, it's crazy because my mother used to say the exact same thing as your father.
Oh, your mom's a sweetie.
She said, used to say the exact same thing. She says, being poor doesn't mean you need to be dirty or filthy, right?
Yep.
And in apartments where we lived in Atlanta, I swear our apartment was always the cleanest, always looked the nice. I mean, felt the nicest inside.
Yep.
And it was important to her because she was always trying to invite any and everybody, and she didn't have shame to invite her like her boss. She cleaned houses and uh her boss is this Jewish family were millionaires. She had no shame with to invite them over to the house to have a meal and when they walked in, it was like, oh wow, it's so nice, and, and
Exactly.
and I'm saying that to say because we have a lot of different cultures and things that are acceptable. Like in my neighborhood, as a kid, you could have got away with the house not looking among your own neighbors.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But when you bring guests in from outside, and when you sometimes if you're trying to reach out beyond a particular culture, because a lot of
Yes,
say, oh, we
yes,
want to
yes,
reach
yes.
everybody.
Yep.
Well, but the way that we do things, or the lack of order, lack of organization, the lack of cleanliness or hygiene, sometimes dictate that you can't be very effective in reaching somebody who is whether it's more affluent or who's even just from a different culture than your specific targeted culture. I don't think
Absolutely.
people understand. I don't think we understand that sometimes we want to reach everybody, but the house looks like it only this
Exactly. Only
segment of
certain
the
people were
population
welcome. Correct.
are
Yeah,
gonna
yeah, yeah,
feel
yeah, yeah, yeah.
are gonna feel comfortable there. You got to be a
Ab-
special breed. You got to be a special breed of hood to sit there and feel comfortable watching the game somewhere with roaches running across living room floor, right? Not everybody's coming to that. Well, in the churches, might not be roaches, but it may be
yeah, yeah, yeah.
just the uncleanliness mess, or even just that some of the antiquated aesthetics. Sometimes when we don't take time, we don't give things thought. So
Yeah.
the last question will be based on everything you've seen. If you could give one piece of advice to
Yes.
pastors trying to revitalize their church through their facilities, what would that be?
I would say start small. So small changes that make a big impact. And so that might be like clean up, tidy up. There's a stain on the roof because you had a leak through the roof
Mhm.
that nobody in the church looks at because you've been there for years, and for years the stain has been there and you don't even notice it. But as a guest, you're going to notice these things because it's your first time, so you're taking in all of it. So something as simple as painting over that paint stain, that stain on the roof. So clean up, tidy up, make it smell good, look good, make it seem like you care. That's simple changes sometimes make the biggest impact. Sometimes as pastors, we see our churches and we say, "Oh my gosh, it's like 1960 in here, and I want to bring it to now, up to date on now." Those changes sometimes take a long, long time. In
Yeah.
between there,
Yeah.
you become frustrated or you don't want to make any change because you're just looking at this really big project. Sometimes start small, give yourselves a good self-esteem boost in some areas. I have seen churches when I've come first to do a walkthrough
Mhm.
before evangelistic meetings, that I make some suggestions. I come back and I'm like, wow, they did just a few minor things. Change the light bulbs to all match the same, type, not one yellow and another one's like kind of grayish. I mean, they went and just put a few light bulbs up. They went through and maybe changed the curtains up, or they painted, or they just painted the entrance door. They put some flowers at the entrance. And I'm like, wow, this is like a different church. And I'm talking about tiny churches, big churches, all sizes, churches that maybe are already looking really nice. Sometimes just small changes make a big impact. Maybe it's the way you change the flow of the entrance of your building. Like when you walk in, what's the process? Maybe it's always been one way, but maybe you need to, change it up to make it more, visitor friendly or children friendly or whatever, you're the group of people that you're like trying to target in your community. Make small changes that make big impact. It'll give your church like a self-esteem boost. It will make them feel better about their church. It will make them be like, okay, now we're more ready to receive guests, right? Like they feel like we're ready to receive guests. And then when you propose a bigger project, they're more willing to follow, or do something like that because they've already, they trust that these small changes made already such a big impact that maybe this big change is really going to take you to the next level. And so I would do stuff like that. Like maybe if it's just clear signage, or create a space where you can engage with guests. Where is that space? Is that your fellowship hall? Is that a classroom that you've just decided to turn into a room? Is that the first two pews of your church where the pastor or a couple of people are just there loving on the people? Is it creating a small welcome center, where the people can take their Connect card and you say, hey, take the Connect card to the welcome center and they've got a little gift for you. Maybe one of the, church ladies made some chocolate chip cookies and the church smells of nice, warm chocolate chip cookies. And they're like, it's mental. It really is all kind of mental. What can you do to create an environment of like, we're family, we love you, we were waiting for you, we were expecting you, everything we do is for you, like what can we do to send that message to the, to the people? I think of the prodigal son. And the father had already done several things to let his son know that he was waiting for him. Obviously, he was there. He was waiting for him every day, looking out for his son, right? So you as the pastor, be looking out for your guests, expecting that a guest is going to come from Sabbath to Sabbath, right? So he was there doing that. I think of the fact that he had the robe, the ring, the shoes, the fattened calf. All of these things were in preparation for his son's arrival. He wasn't thinking last minute stuff or like, oh, we got a guest, I don't know what to do with them, or we're not prepared for them. No. These are all things that were thought through, experiences that you guys said would happen, that you wanted to walk your guests through. So I would just do small changes that will make a big impact and then continue to build on that. That would be my final, word of advice to you and your team.
Awesome. Well, this has been incredibly valuable, and we're probably going to wind up sharing, cutting into pieces so that we can share it with our part of our church teams at large. But we want to start with pastors because our pastors are hungry out here to see revitalization and to see God's kingdom grow. So we want to get these principles instilled in us so we can disseminate them elsewhere. But thank you so much. Yeah.
I wanted to give everybody two resources that I used. I read these resources. They were so helpful to me. I've, obviously developed, my own ideas from them, but one of them is called First Impressions. And then the second book, which is the part 2 of that, is called Lasting Impressions. I cannot remember right now the name of the author, but they're going to be the first one that comes up when you look them up in Kindle or you go to Google. Okay. First Impressions, Lasting Impressions. Great resources for you to like either have your, your hospitality team look into, dive into, study, read, chew on, and then use that to help develop like what is your process at your local church.
Awesome. It's such a God thing because I literally wrote for the interview. I literally wrote first and making first and lasting impressions.
Look at that.
So thank you for sharing that resource.
That's absolutely awesome. It's my pleasure.
Awesome.
I love doing what I do, because I remember when I was first a guest. You
Absolutely.
know, when I first came to the church, I was 16 years old. I was, you know, I was didn't know anything about the Adventist church. I went there reluctantly, forced by my dad. He started going, and I had just moved back with him. I didn't want to go, and I remember how kind and caring the people at the reception were. And then from there, I remember how kind and caring the youth leader was,
Mm.
which also reflected on the youth themselves because it was his culture, it was their culture. And they embraced me and made me feel like I was part of the family. And so I was just from then on, I became a part of that greeter team, you know, because I loved how I was received in such a way. And I wanted to be able to give that back. And it's been a lasting impression on my ministry ever since.
Amen.
So I strongly believe that, you know, you can have a tiny church, you can have, you know, you can have a huge church. If you've got some warm and loving people, you can have a old church, you can have a church that's falling apart. You can, it doesn't matter if you have loving, kind people in different points in your church. Those are like the most important, you know, thing that you can have to create these lasting impressions. It's the buildings are important, but the people are sometimes like the main key right there.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you so much, and for y'all's ministry in general. It's an inspiration, not just in the southern region, but throughout North American division, and we're just grateful for you guys.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. God bless you all. I'm going to pray for you guys to have great hospitality teams and first impression teams at your churches.
God bless. Thanks.